Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. It is a privilege to rise in this place this morning to speak to the government's long-awaited budget. While the suspense built over the last 6 months, waiting for this day, at the end of it, our biggest fears were realized and the disappointment palpable. Canadians had been sold a bill of goods packaged up in promises and buzzwords, with the same tax and spend policies of the Liberals winning the day and a staggering $78 billion deficit, which, if passed, will be the largest in our nation's history outside of COVID. A deficit larger than what the Prime Minister promised and double what his predecessor left behind. And before I go any further, Madam Speaker, I will be splitting my time with the member from Mégantic-Les Habla-Lotbinière. This budget is strewn with measures under the same misguided understanding of economics and the notion that you can spend your way out of a deficit. I think many Canadians expected better, given this Prime Minister's resume. He promised a generational budget, but the only way this qualifies as such is in the enormous amount of debt that it leaves to future generations. As author and commentator Kim Moody wrote on X, and I quote, "This is a horrible budget that will cripple our future generations," end quote. Saddling our children and grandchildren with higher and higher debt servicing costs robs them of opportunity and will hamstring future Canadian governments. This new Prime Minister is saying and doing the exact same things as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. As a result, his government will produce the exact same results: low growth, low investment, and higher inflation. At their core, Liberals believe that for Canadians and Canadian companies to build, get things done, create jobs, prosper, and pursue their dreams, the government must be in control. But what actually happens when a government, especially a Liberal government, gets involved and tries to control things? Investors stop investing. The Prime Minister promised more investment. The budget reveals investment is collapsing. Builders stop building. Companies have fled the country and are building in other parts of the world that directly compete with Canadian producers, for example, oil and gas. Taxes are imposed, like the industrial carbon tax, which adds to the cost of doing business, making it difficult for Canadian companies to compete and discouraging any business considering moving to Canada. And jobs are lost, followed by higher unemployment, especially among young Canadians. The impacts can be seen across this country. The farmers that produce food and the manufacturers that build things and create jobs in the riding of Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek, are being penalized. The industrial carbon tax, which will continue to increase over the next 5 years and beyond to 2050, keeps input costs high for our farmers. It drives up the cost of materials like steel and concrete, which are used in the construction of farm shops, manufacturing plants, farm implements, and residential homes. It makes our producers and manufacturers less competitive with their international competitors. By maintaining his industrial carbon tax, the Prime Minister is sending manufacturers in Humboldt, Engelfeld, and St. Brou, just to name a few, a message. He is, in effect, saying to them and to those whose jobs rely on these businesses, we don't really like what you're doing, so we'll make it difficult for you to continue doing it. Similarly, what is the message the industrial carbon tax sends to our resource sector in Saskatchewan? Rather than creating the right conditions for these sectors to flourish and contribute to our economy, this Liberal government treats them like a bank machine where they can just make tax withdrawals over and over again, taking money out of these income-generating activities and putting it into a bigger bureaucracy. Conservatives offered to work with the government to support Canadians and ensure a positive, hopeful, and affordable future, one where our economy can respond to international threats from a place of strength, where our farmers can ship their products to new markets and our manufacturers can compete and sell their goods both south of the border and around the world. Instead, the Liberals have decided to continue with their high deficits despite promising to spend less. The Prime Minister promised to cap spending at $62 billion and broke it. He promised to lower the debt to GDP ratio and instead is raising it along with inflation. In fact, with this budget, Madam Speaker, the Liberals are spending $90 billion more than was previously committed. That's a $5,400 increase that will come out of the pockets of every Canadian household. That's $5,400 of new spending in this year alone for Canadian households. This budget fails to meet the moment. Fitch Ratings sent out a warning just a day after the budget was released, a warning that the constant expansion of fiscal spending by this Liberal government is putting pressure on Canada's credit rating. Now, to add insult to injury, after tabling the budget and asking Saskatchewanians to make more sacrifices, the Finance Minister headed off to a lavish Prosecco and Prudence party hosted by lobbyists and Liberal insiders. Apparently, it's okay to ask others to sacrifice, just not themselves. Under their new projected spending, the Liberals are planning to add an extra $321 billion to the national debt over the next 5 years. That is more than twice the $154 billion his predecessor, Justin Trudeau, was projecting to add over the same period. The national debt has ballooned to the point where the entire amount the federal government collects from GST will be less than what Canadians are required to pay just to pay the interest on the national debt. For residents of Saskatchewan, it means the Liberals will spend more money servicing the debt they created than they will send to the provinces in health transfer payments. This on the heels of taxing schools and hospitals for heating during the winter for years until it was politically advantageous for them to end the consumer carbon tax. After shackling our economy with regulations and red tape over the last 10 years, the Liberal strategy remains the same. They refuse to repeal their anti-resource development legislation, like C-69 and C-48, and plan to continue with their clean fuel standards tax that will cost Canadians an extra 17 cents per litre on their gas. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau claimed that he wasn't spending but investing, campaigning on a promise of small deficits, but immediately broke that promise. The current Prime Minister is maintaining the Liberals' unbroken record of broken promises to Canadians. But he's gone even further, Madam Speaker, changing the way he will account for his spending. By using an overly expansive definition of capital spending, they are giving the appearance of a balanced operating budget. If you bring their definition in line with international standards, they won't even deliver on their promise to balance their operational spending. Liberals refuse to get out of the way to let Canadians build, feed, and house themselves. In closing, Madam Speaker, the people of Saskatchewan and all Canadians deserve a federal government that gets out of the way so that they can invest in Canada's economy, build for the future, and feed and house themselves. They deserve the opportunity to earn livelihoods, engineer and create with Canadian steel, grow Canadian food to feed Canadians and the world, and buy a home of their choosing. They deserve a government who doesn't gamble away their future with large inflationary deficits and taxes on their livelihoods. They deserve affordable homes with affordable groceries in an affordable life. Budget 2025 ignores the challenges people in Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek are facing. It is a budget that delivers for wealthy insiders, bondholders, and multinationals. It will drive up inflation, cost Canadians more in interest on the national debt than we collect in GST or spend on healthcare transfers, and will saddle our children and our children's children with paying for the Liberals' buy now and have someone else pay for it later policies. The bottom line, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister has failed to deliver on his promises. Thank you.
Questions and